As a young person learning to read, there's a likely chance that at some point you came across the wholesome adventures of Frog and Toad. The quadrilogy of books about a pair of anthropomorphic, amphibious best friends are children's literary classics. The stories follow the duo as they encounter the mundane stresses of everyday life, losing a jacket button, resisting the temptation of delicious cookies, anticipating mail delivery, and dealing with the concerns and insecurities that go along with facing these challenges, all the while accompanied by fascinating illustrations that border the line between jovial and haunting. The pair have delighted readers for over 50 years with their playful romps, and have managed to find life beyond the books as well, during the 1980s as stop-motion films, and, unexpectedly, in the 2000s, as a multi-Tony-nominated Broadway musical. Which is why it's such a surprise that this is the first time Frog and Toad has ever been adapted as a 2D animated cartoon. With the weighty legacy it has to live up to, does it manage to make the leap successfully? Let's hop into Apple TV's Frog and Toad. Frog and Toad may be well known in their own right, but who you may not be as familiar with is their creator, Arnold Lovel. Born May 22, 1933 in Los Angeles, California, Lobel spent a majority of his life in New York, where he developed a love of reading at his local library to escape frequent bullying from other children. His fondness of books parlayed into a passion for storytelling, leading him to earning a degree in fine arts from the Pratt Institute in 1955, where he also met and married his fellow classmate Anita Kempler, and shortly after had a pair of children, Adrian and Adam. Lobel worked in various marketing and advertising jobs as he attempted to carve out a living working in the children's literary industry as an illustrator, until getting his big break in the 1970s when he wrote and illustrated the Frog and Toad books. The 1980s saw him narrate 2 stop-motion Frog and Toad movies, but it would be the last project he would work on with his prized characters, as he passed away in 1987, with his children taking control of the property. There had been several ideas bandied around of how to proceed with the characters, with a movie even being considered at one point. But it wasn't until the 2020s when Adrian and Adam agreed to a series with Apple TV, featuring 16 11-minute long episodes. The episodes are all based on stories previously written by Lobel and directed by Sarah Johnson, who had previously worked in the art department on such shows as Fairly Odd Parents and Bunsen is a Beast, and directing the Loud House episode Maltese Bear. Like the books, the show centers on the relationship between best friends Frog and Toad, played by Nat Faxon and Kevin Michael Richardson respectively. And I must say, there are few characters that have better been brought to life so seamlessly from book to screen than these two. Nat Faxon, who won an Oscar for the film The Descendants, has an extensive history in voiceover work, with notable roles in Robot Chicken, playing Elfo from Disenchantment, and being the voice of Captain Underpants. And as great as he is in these roles, Frog is the part he was born to play. The character of Frog in this series is a hopelessly optimistic dreamer, always enjoying the world and all of its offerings. And Faxon does a masterful job depicting Frog's childlike wonder, excitable over the smallest of things, gleefully anticipating each day's activities. His voice has so much depth to it, it's impossible to not associate him with Frog going forward. Toad, on the other hand, is as close to the opposite of Frog as can be. He leans largely neurotic, more apt to discouragement and worry, frequently questioning himself. When he's not mired in these moments though, he has the biggest heart. You can see he really cares for Frog's well-being. And it's these conflicting aspects of his personality that lead to some of the funniest moments in the entire show. Toad is played by the legendary Kevin Michael Richardson, who has one of the most extensive voice acting careers, playing Goro in the 1995 live-action Mortal Kombat movie, Kamek in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Trigon in Teen Titans, and he gives so much personality to Toad in this show with his immediately recognizable deep baritone voice. You can't help but fall in love with the warmth he brings to this character. The actors play off of each other extremely well, especially being that the two characters are such an odd couple in how they approach and react to life situations. Now that brings us to the show itself. The plots are simple, but surprisingly relatable to both young and old alike. Take for example the episode Cookies. Frog and Toad can't stop eating cookies that Toad has baked for them. Frog suggests they put the cookies away in a box so they can't see them and aren't tempted to eat more. But Toad comments how they can open the box at any time and see the cookies, which could possibly entice them to eat more. In response, Frog suggests to put the cookies on top of a bookshelf. But again, Toad asks, what if they use a ladder to get the cookies? It's funny for kids, knowing they shouldn't eat the cookies, but their greedy appetites make them go to comical lengths. At one point, even trying to bury the cookies underground. For adults, it's a battle of wills and self-control. The cookies are ever present, but no matter how physically out of reach the cookies are, they keep inventing these excuses to justify their own potential bad behavior. And that's one of the fascinating features of this series. There's no villains, no conflict in the conventionally minded sense. It's all about learning. Through experiencing emotional ups and downs, and displaying the value of friendship in helping cope and grow in these situations. In one episode, Toad volunteers to get ice cream for him and Frog, but grows overwhelmed with the task of deciding what flavor Frog might want. He heads back with 2 cones stacked high with one of each flavor. As he makes his way back to Frog, the treats melt and spill all over him. Toad feels dejected about his perceived failure, but Frog rationally states, "You tried to do something nice, and it didn't work out." And the two go for ice cream together. It's amazing how expressing the obvious feels so therapeutic, not only for Toad, but the audience as well. Showing that you don't have to dwell on these moments that don't deserve to negatively affect you the way they can, and that a friend can help you see that more clearly and get you through it. The dialogue is specifically geared towards children in this sense, both in the word choice they use and how they speak, in easy to understand sentences to understand and emphasize what they're saying. There are other characters that Frog and Toad get to interact with too, all equally as polite and enthusiastic. They're adorable as all get up, with unique personalities to them. such as the robin who wears a sun hat out, or the mink who owns an ice cream store and strums a banjo. They all exist in this world that feels so calm and serene, with backgrounds that are lightly colored, the complete opposite of the book's darker, muddier coloring. And it makes sense and works for the show's audience, giving a happy, still storybook feel that kids are bound to enjoy looking at. Frog and Toad is a series full of lighthearted fare, and its easygoing approachability makes for an effortless viewing experience. You can't go wrong with any episode, but these three are my personal favorites. Episode 3, Part 2, Dragons and Giants. Frog reads Toad a story about heroic medieval knights, making the two of them question if they themselves are brave. To determine if they are, they set out to climb the perilous Mount Gloom. This episode, seeing the two try to maintain their valiant disposition in the face of present danger, is downright comical. It's tons of fun to see them both in the same panicked headspace, which leads to my favorite moments of them running from various hazards shouting, "We are not afraid!" Episode 4, Part 1, The Garden. Toad admires Frog's garden so much, he attempts to grow his own. When his seeds don't sprout immediately after planting them, he presumes it's because they are afraid, and does everything in his power to be sure they are comfortable enough to bloom. Toad's innocence drives the entire episode. His irrational concern over the seed's non-existent fearfulness drives him to these inordinate lengths to care for them, which reveals his considerate and nurturing heart. Episode 4, Part 2, A Cake. Frog vows to make Toad a delicious cake, but to Toad's dismay, Frog has no idea how to cook, increasing Toad's worries the further along Frog's recipe advances. My favorite episode, and to me, the funniest. Frog's enthusiastic cluelessness while cooking, juxtaposed with Toad's horrified expressions as he watches his dessert being made, is too funny, and it's capped off with a hilariously sweet ending. An animated Frog and Toad show has been long overdue, and now that it's here, it's about time. Children will always have the classic stories, and now they'll have a modern, updated cartoon that they can grow up with, and it is a great companion piece to the books. If this series does anything, aside from potentially releasing more episodes, it's that hopefully this will put Frog and Toad into the limelight again. The possibilities seem endless now, and the only true wish I have is that they are approached with the same happiness as this cartoon exudes, and the same joy that Lobel had when he created the books. As he once said, "I cannot think of any work that could be more agreeable and fun than making books for children." And as long as Frog and Toad continue to entertain us, Lobel's work is still being done.